I used to believe that love from your children was unconditional. That no matter how old they got, or how wealthy or broke you were, the bond you forged with them from birth was unshakable. But on a humid Father's Day evening in Austin, Texas, that belief shattered into 1,000 sharp pieces. My name is Daniel Hayes. I'm 62 years old, and until a few years ago, I ran one of the biggest independent mechanical contracting businesses in Central Texas. I didn't inherit the business. I built it, crawling under houses, patching leaking pipes in August heat, negotiating contracts while my hand was still caked with grease. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid off. By the time I retired at 57, I'd sold the company and tucked away a small fortune. I thought I'd done everything right. I thought that money, stability, and love would guarantee me something in return. Respect for my two children, Claire and Ethan. Claire is 29, all Instagram filters and ambition without direction. Ethan is 27, charming but allergic to hard work. For years, I covered their expenses. Apartments in trendy parts of town, brand new cars, even bailed Ethan out when his startup idea collapsed in debt. I told myself that's what fathers do. That night, I put on my favorite press button down, navy with tiny white dots, and the only pair of dress shoes I owned that still had shine. Claire had texted me that she and Ethan were planning something special for Father's Day. Dinner at Miller's, 6 p.m. Don't be late. We got something fun planned. For a moment, I felt like the luckiest dad alive. I hadn't seen much of them lately, but I told myself they were just busy. As I drove to the restaurant, I rehearsed a little speech in my head. Something about how proud I was of them, how I loved them more than anything. I even thought about giving them both a little cash surprise. That's the kind of man I am, always thinking of them first. The restaurant was buzzing with Sunday night families. Miller's had that rustic Texas charm. Exposed brick walls, a smell of hickory smoke clinging to the air, country music humming softly. I scanned the room for Claire and Ethan. That's when I saw them, sitting at a corner booth, laughing with a group of friends, pitchers of beer on the table. I smiled, expecting them to wave me over. Instead, Claire's eyes flicked up from her phone to meet mine. Her smile faltered, then vanished. Ethan didn't even look up. I walked over, still hopeful. "Hey, kids." Claire blinked like I was a stranger who'd interrupted her meal. "Oh, hey, Dad. Happy Father's Day," I said, trying to keep the warmth in my voice. "You didn't tell me you invited friends." She shifted in her seat. "Yeah, this is kind of more of a friends thing." Ethan chuckled at something his buddy said, then glanced at me like I was an inconvenience. "Yeah, Dad, we're just hanging out. Maybe we'll catch you later." The waitress, holding a tray of nachos, looked between us with raised eyebrows. The pity on her face burned hotter than the Texas heat outside. I swallowed the lump in my throat. "So, there's no dinner?" "No plans." Claire shrugged, already turning back to her phone. "We figured you'd understand. We've been busy." I stood there for a long second, the chatter and laughter around me suddenly sounding distant, muffled, like I was underwater. "Right," I said finally. "I understand." I turned and walked out. No one followed me. No one called my name. The drive home felt longer than usual. The city lights blurred in my vision. I parked in my driveway and sat there with the engine running, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. My house felt empty when I walked in, too big for just me. It still smelled faintly of Linda's lavender candles, though she'd been gone 6 years. I poured a glass of bourbon and sat at the kitchen table in silence. They had humiliated me in public and didn't care. After everything I'd done for them, after every bill I'd paid, every sacrifice I'd made, I didn't even earn a plate at their table. I replayed the scene in my mind until the bourbon was gone. At first, all I felt was hurt. Then hurt turned to something darker, a gnawing realization that love alone wasn't enough. I had raised two entitled strangers who thought I owed them my life. By midnight, I wasn't just heartbroken. I was angry, and anger has a way of sparking ideas. The night after Father's Day, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Claire's blank stare and Ethan's dismissive smirk. It wasn't the first time they'd taken me for granted, but this time something inside me broke. By 3 a.m., I sat at my kitchen table with a legal pad and pen, bourbon sweating on the counter. I stared at the blank page, thinking about my life. Linda would have known what to say. She always did. She had been the glue between me and the kids. After cancer took her 6 years ago, I threw myself into being the provider, thinking money and support were the language they understood best. But love that's bought isn't love at all. I started writing. Not a letter. A list. Claire's mortgage, $1,750 per month. Ethan's car lease, $650 per month. Ethan's credit cards, in my name, $22,000 balance. Their health insurance, on my plan. Their phones, family plan, I pay. Line after line, I wrote every way I'd been their safety net. I stared at the total at the bottom. My jaw tightened. Nearly $8,000 a month drained into their lives, and they couldn't even share a plate of nachos with me. By sunrise, I had made a decision. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to plead. I wasn't even going to demand an apology. I was going to vanish financially. Let them see how far their arrogance carried them without me. The next morning, I called my attorney, Linda's old friend, Margaret Doyle. She picked up on the second ring. Daniel? It's early. Everything okay? Not really, I said. My voice surprised me. It was calm, cold. I need to restructure some things. Quietly, Margaret listened as I explained. She didn't interrupt, didn't offer pity, just asked one question when I finished. Are you sure, Daniel? Once we set this in motion, there's no going back. I've never been more sure of anything, I said. By the end of that week, things were already moving. I went to the bank, signed papers transferring the deed of Claire's townhouse back into my name. I canceled Ethan's credit cards and froze the account he'd been dipping into for business expenses. The family phone plan? Gone. Their insurance? Terminated. The attorney helped me reallocate my assets into a trust they couldn't touch. But the hardest part came that Friday night. Claire showed up unannounced around 8 p.m., still dressed in her office chic, a beige pantsuit and heels. She breezed into my house without knocking, as usual. Dad, my debit card isn't working, she said, tapping her phone like it had betrayed her. I tried to get gas, and it kept declining. Did you forget to transfer money to my account? I set down my book. I didn't forget. She frowned. Then what's going on? What's going on? I said evenly. Is that you're 30 years old, Claire? You have a full-time job. You should be paying for your own gas. Her mouth fell open. Excuse me. You heard me. She laughed, a brittle sound. This is about Father's Day, isn't it? You're mad we didn't do some big fake family dinner. God, Dad, grow up. We're adults. We don't need to celebrate every Hallmark holiday. Her words stung, but I didn't let it show. You didn't need to celebrate me, I said. You needed to respect me. You failed, and now you'll learn how to live without my help. Her face went pale. Are you serious right now? Dead serious, I replied. The mortgage? In my name. You'll need to refinance. The phone plan? Canceled. Health insurance? Find your own. And tell your brother he might want to return that leased BMW before the repo man takes it. Her voice shot up an octave. You can't do this. We'll lose everything. No, I said, standing. You'll lose what you never earned. There's a difference. She stormed out, slamming the door so hard the windows rattled. 10 minutes later, Ethan called. Dad, what the hell? Claire says you canceled everything. That's right, I said. You're out of your mind. How am I supposed to pay my bills? Like everyone else, I said. Get a job, Ethan. There was a long pause on the other end, then a bitter laugh. You know what? You were never a real dad. You think throwing money at us made you Father of the Year? No wonder Mom always had to make excuses for you. That one hurt, but I held my ground. Good night, Ethan, I said, and hung up. The next few days were chaos. Angry texts, voicemails, even a post from Claire on social media. Imagine your own dad leaving you homeless. Happy belated Father's Day to the man who thinks love is conditional. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Something strange happened as the noise continued. I started to feel lighter. For the first time in years, my life felt like my own. No more bailing them out, no more being treated like an ATM with a pulse. But I also knew this was just the beginning. The real storm hadn't hit yet. By the second week, Claire showed up again, this time with Ethan in tow. They banged on my door until I opened it. Both looked disheveled. No filters, no Instagram smiles. "Dad, please," Ethan said, his bravado gone. "They're threatening to take my car. Claire's behind on her mortgage. We can't do this alone." I looked at my children, their fear, their entitlement, their complete inability to survive without me. Part of me wanted to fold, but then I remembered Miller's restaurant, the way they dismissed me like a stranger. "You'll be fine," I said. "Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but you'll survive. And maybe if you learn something, we'll talk again." Claire's eyes brimmed with tears. "You're punishing us." "No," I said softly. "I'm teaching you." And with that, I closed the door. Inside, I exhaled. My hands shook, but my resolve didn't. The revenge wasn't loud or dramatic. It was quiet, surgical, and it had just begun. By late summer, the storm I'd set in motion had fully landed on Claire and Ethan. It started with the little things. Claire's Instagram stories stopped showing fancy brunches and weekend getaways. Ethan stopped posting pictures with his leased BMW. Instead, there was radio silence. I'd heard through Margaret's office assistant that Ethan's car had already been repossessed and that Claire had received a foreclosure warning. None of this brought me joy, not in the way revenge stories and movies make you feel. There was no dramatic orchestra swelling in the background, just quiet. I spent my mornings tending the small vegetable garden Linda used to love and my afternoons reading in peace. But I also knew the phone call or the knock at my door was coming. And when it did, I had to be ready to hold my ground. It came one Thursday morning in September. My office receptionist buzzed me while I was reviewing investment reports. "Daniel," she said nervously, "your children are here. They said it's urgent." I closed my laptop slowly. "Send them in." The door burst open before she could even announce them. Claire strode in, mascara smudged, hair unwashed, dressed in an oversized hoodie and leggings that didn't match. Ethan followed, looking equally ragged. No Rolex on his wrist, no cocky grin. "This has gone too far," Claire said before I could even speak. Her voice cracked with emotion. "We're drowning." I gestured to the chairs across from my desk. "Sit." They didn't. Ethan crossed his arms. "You've made your point, Dad. You're mad about Father's Day. Fine. We're sorry. But you can't just cut us off like this." "I can," I said evenly. And I did. Claire shook her head, eyes brimming. "You don't understand. They're going to evict me, Dad. My house, my life, it's falling apart. Ethan's living with me now because he can't afford rent anywhere. We're scared." For a brief moment, my heart twisted. These were still my children. I remembered Claire's first dance recital, Ethan's Little League games. But then I remembered Father's Day. I remembered all the years of disrespect, all the times I'd been taken for granted. "You're scared," I said quietly. "Good. Maybe fear will teach you what comfort never could." Ethan's face reddened. "You think you're teaching us a lesson? You're just being cruel. A real father doesn't abandon his kids." "A real father," I said, leaning forward, "raises adults who can stand on their own. I failed at that. I turned you into dependents. That ends today." Claire's tears spilled over. "We're not asking for everything back, Dad. Just help us get through this. Alone, maybe we'll pay you back." I almost laughed. "You've been saying that for years, Claire. When has it ever happened? How many times have I covered your overdraft fees, your late bills, your bad decisions?" Silence. Ethan shifted uncomfortably. "So what? You want us to beg?" "I want you to grow up," I said. Claire dropped into the chair across from me, burying her face in her hands. "I can't believe you're doing this to us. Mom would have never." My voice cut like a whip. "Don't you dare bring your mother into this. Your mother worked herself to the bone to give you everything. She's the reason you had ballet lessons and summer camps and cars. She'd be ashamed to see how you've squandered it." Ethan snapped, his voice rising. You think you're so righteous, Dad? All you ever did was work. You weren't there for us. Now you're punishing us for needing you. I stood slowly, my chair scraping the floor. My voice stayed low, but it carried. I gave you everything I had, Ethan. Time, money, love. And when I needed the smallest thing, a plate of nachos and an hour of your time, you couldn't be bothered. So no, I don't feel bad for finally putting myself first. The room went silent except for Claire's muffled sobs. You'll figure it out, I continued. You're smart. You have jobs. This is your wake-up call. Answer it. Ethan looked at me like he didn't recognize me anymore. We have no one else, Dad. You have each other, I said. Maybe for the first time in your lives, you'll learn what family really means. Claire lifted her head, eyes red. Is this permanent? Are you really just done with us? I'm done funding your irresponsibility, I said. But I'll never stop being your father. When you want a relationship built on respect instead of handouts, my door will be open. Until then, you're on your own. They left without another word. Claire slammed the door. Ethan muttered something under his breath. When their footsteps faded, I sank into my chair, exhausted. It hurt more than I wanted to admit, but I also knew it was necessary. The fallout spread further over the next month. Word got around town that Ethan had taken a job delivering packages and Claire was working overtime at her firm. They sold off their designer clothes and handbags. Their friends, the ones who loved their lavish lifestyle, stopped coming around. One evening, I saw Claire walking down Main Street with a grocery bag, looking thinner, humbler. She didn't see me, and for a brief moment, I wondered if I'd gone too far. But then I remembered Linda. I remembered her last words before she passed, whispered to me in that hospital bed. Make sure they know love isn't about money. That's when I knew I wasn't done. Not yet. They still hadn't learned. They still blamed me instead of looking inward. And until that changed, my lesson wasn't complete. I had one more move to make, something that would force them to confront their entitlement head-on. It wasn't going to be dramatic or flashy. Just like before, it would be quiet, surgical, and devastating. October arrived with a chill that crept through the windows of my old farmhouse. The trees outside burned with reds and oranges, the same colors Linda loved in her fall wreaths. I sat on the porch sipping coffee, watching the leaves drift down when the idea for my final move settled into place. Claire and Ethan had changed on the surface. They were working harder, living leaner. But deep down, I could tell they still thought this was temporary, just a rough season until Dad bailed them out again. If I gave in now, everything I'd endured would be meaningless. So I decided to do something they couldn't ignore. That week, I called my attorney, Harold. He'd been with me since Linda and I first bought the house. I need you to revise my estate plan, I told him. Harold hesitated. Are you sure about this, Daniel? It's drastic. I've never been more sure, I said. They need to know they can't treat me like an ATM and still expect a payout when I'm gone. After 2 hours of paperwork and notarized signatures, it was done. I made sure word of it would get back to them. Not through me, but through the small-town grapevine that carried news faster than the internet ever could. It didn't take long. 2 weeks later, Claire showed up at my door. She didn't knock timidly this time. She pounded. When I opened the door, she stood there shaking, her breath fogging in the cold air. You cut us out of your will, she demanded. Completely? I stepped aside and motioned her in. Come inside before you freeze. She stormed past me, her sneakers squeaking on the wood floor. Don't act calm like this is normal, Dad. You left everything to charity? To strangers? After everything we've been through. I closed the door quietly. Not strangers. The local scholarship fund, the women's shelter, and the library expansion. Places your mother loved. Claire's eyes were wild. You're choosing strangers over your own children? I'm choosing legacy over entitlement, I said evenly. You and Ethan have had everything handed to you since birth. I won't leave you a fortune to squander when I'm gone. Her voice cracked. We're your kids. Isn't love supposed to mean you take care of us? I walked to the window and looked out at the maple tree Linda planted years ago. Love is making sure you can take care of yourselves. I fail at that. This is my last chance to set things right." She stood silent, trembling with rage and disbelief. "You hate us," she whispered finally. That hurt more than I wanted to admit. I turned back to her. "If I hated you, Claire, I'd still be paying for your life. I let you coast until I was dead, then leave you money to destroy yourselves faster. I love you too much to do that." For the first time since this all began, she faltered. Her anger cracked, revealing something raw underneath. "We don't know how to do this without you," she said softly. "That's the point," I replied. "You'll learn. You're stronger than you think." She sank onto the couch, tears sliding silently down her face. "Ethan's going to lose it when he hears this." "Maybe," I said, "or maybe it'll wake him up. Both of you." We sat in silence for a long time. The only sound was the ticking of the old clock Linda used to wind every Sunday. Finally, Claire stood. She didn't slam the door this time. She just looked at me with tear-streaked cheeks. "I don't know if I can forgive you for this." I nodded. "You don't have to. Not yet." Then she left. 2 nights later, my phone rang. It was Ethan. "Dad," he said, his voice tight. "Is it true? The will?" "Yes." Silence on the line. Then, "You finally lost it. You think this makes you some kind of hero? You're just bitter and alone." I didn't rise to the bait. "Good night, Ethan," I said, and hung up. I expected that to be the end of it. But a week later, something happened I didn't anticipate. It was a Saturday morning. I was sitting on the porch again when I saw an old, beat-up sedan pull in my driveway. Ethan stepped out. He looked different, tired, leaner, but there was something else in his face, too. Something I hadn't seen in years. He walked up the porch steps and stood awkwardly in front of me. "Can I sit?" I nodded. For a while, he just stared out at the yard, hands clasped. Finally, he spoke. "I got a promotion at the delivery company. It's not much, but I earned it. Feels weird to say that." I glanced at him. "Good. How's Claire?" "Better," he said quietly. "She picked up extra shifts. We sold most of our junk. It's not easy, but we're figuring it out." There was a long pause. Then Ethan's voice dropped, almost a whisper. "Were we really that bad?" I didn't sugarcoat it. "Yes, but that's on me too. I made it too easy for you." He nodded slowly. "I don't like what you did, but I get it now. Maybe for the first time." A lump formed in my throat. I looked away, so he wouldn't see. "Claire's still mad," he added, "but I think she'll come around." We sat there in silence, watching the wind scatter leaves across the yard. For the first time in years, I felt hope, not for money or control, but for my kid's future. As Ethan stood to leave, he hesitated. "You're still our dad," he said, "even if you don't give us a dime." My throat tightened. "And you're still my son." He gave a faint smile and walked back to his car. I sat there long after the engine faded down the road, the autumn sun warming my face. I didn't know what the future held. Maybe Claire would come around. Maybe she wouldn't. Maybe one day they'd both understand what Linda and I had always wanted for them. But for the first time, I felt peace. Not because I'd won, not because I'd punished them, but because I'd finally done what needed to be done. Sometimes love isn't soft. Sometimes it's steel. And sometimes the quietest revenge is simply teaching someone to stand without you. I leaned back in my chair and closed my eyes, listening to the leaves rustle, wondering if Linda would be proud. I like to think she would. This was just one of many stories where revenge takes an unexpected turn. Hit subscribe if you want more endings you'll never see coming. Drop a comment. What would you have done in their shoes?